it's a long story, and I don't want to take up too much time, because there's a story that goes back to 1991, and then there's a story that starts in 2013. I have to give you a little of both stories. The first thing I'd like to say is that hundreds of thousands of farmers were at an encampment outside Delhi for a year, and they have refused to move. They faced massive police harassment and attacks. They faced attacks in the media. They were called terrorists. They were called anti-national and so on. But they withstood all that pressure, refused to move, refused to be divided. The government tried to divide them, tried to call some leaders in and so on. They refused all that. And they fought and fought and fought and forced this government to actually back down. The immediate issue was the passage last year in September of 3 farm bills. When those became law, they became law with almost no discussion. That provoked this protest. Now, the Modi government in 7 years, since 2013, has only twice backed down on anything. Only twice. First was in 2015 over the amendment to the Land Acquisition Act. There was again a big farmers' protest. They withdrew. And this time over these 3 farm laws. What the farmers objected to in this immediate laws was that this was going to Uberize farming. You were going to make farmers like Uber drivers. And the situation of of Uber drivers is well known to people. You have absolutely no control over the situation. The apps dominate. It's a highly abstract domination, because you can't even call Uber and say, hey, listen, I'm a driver, I've got a problem. I mean, you're basically a so-called freelance operator who's working at the mercy of the app. And they wanted to convert the marketplace into a digital marketplace, which would be like the Uber app. I mean, if you want an analogy, this is it. And the farmers said farming can't work like this. So they were able to get the Modi government to back off. Modi didn't say that the bill was wrong. He just said, we failed to persuade you, which means they're going to come back with a new bill. Don't miss this. He just said, we failed to persuade you. They're going to come back. So this is not over. And the farmers have not left their encampments because they have another demand, which is a much deeper demand. And that's for minimum support pricing. That's for electricity subsidies. That's even for a better education policy and so on. But let's stay with minimum support prices and electricity subsidies. You see, farming, as every farmer knows, is a deeply difficult profession to do under the conditions of capitalism. In the United States, farmers found this in the 1980s. There was a range of farm suicides. In the 1980s, that's when Willie Nelson starts Farm Aid to raise money to prevent foreclosures of farms and so on. Small and medium farmers, Nick, cannot do farming because you are under the vagaries of the market and of nature. Hey, listen, nature is hard enough to deal with, okay? If you got a bad crop one year because of drought or because there was too much rain, you can get wiped out. Nature is not necessarily a farmer's friend. It can go in all directions because it's got its own deal, okay? Nature isn't sitting there saying, how do I help humans? It's doing its own thing. And climate change doesn't help, okay? It's created extreme weather patterns and so on. So farming is difficult anyway, because it's hard to deal with the vagaries of nature. You add capitalism to it, it's hard. You add financialization, it's even harder. In other words, you start betting on future produce. You make farm futures like they do at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange or they do in India. You create a kind of insanity of prices. Prices are out of sync with the actual work of the farmer. Prices become set by, speculators and so on. This is appalling for farmers. And so in India, from 1947, when the government was independent, till 1991, the government actually had a regulatory framework and an interventionist policy. It would come out there and set minimum support prices. It would also buy grain and other foodstuffs from the farmers and then sell it at cut price ration shops to the citizenry. So the state did two things. It helped farmers earn an income, and it enabled people, particularly in cities, to buy affordable food. So farming and hunger could be dealt with by state policy. There's no other way to do it, frankly, Nick. That's a very rational way. 1991, under pressure from the International Monetary Fund, the state basically took away subsidy regimes, electricity subsidy, water subsidy, seed subsidy, and all that stuff, and also started to whittle away minimum support prices. From 1991 till just a few months ago, as far as we have statistics, 400,000 Indian farmers committed suicide. In the past 7 years, 100,000 farmers committed suicide. These numbers are low because many places don't count women's suicides as farmer suicides. So the numbers are likely higher. 400,000 people in India have committed suicide, Nick, because of the farming crisis. So the farmers say, yes, take back the 3 laws, but we want the conditions of suicide to be removed. And that is why this struggle is not over. And also, it's why the Indian farmers are not just fighting for India. They are fighting for farmers everywhere. And I hope we come to realize that.